Hi and hello watch fans, and welcome to another edition of the Real Time Show with me, your friendly neighbourhood watchmaker Rob Nuts, and my co-host Alon Ben Joseph, calling in all the way from Amsterdam. Today we are joined by Sylvain Berneron, and Alon, please give our illustrious guest the welcome to the show that he deserves.
Sylvain, welcome.
Hi, Alan. Hi, Rob. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, buddy, for taking the time in your very busy schedule to sit down with us. You are not only the creative director at Breitling, but you have an amazing project coming up, which are watches that bear your name on the dial. So we are very eager to learn about that. But before we do so, I'm very proud and honored to call you my friend. We've met several years ago. You are not only an amazing designer and creator, you are a gentle soul. You're very philosophical, very smart, very friendly, have an amazing moral compass, and you are actually a petrol head, but not like everybody might think only cars that you love. You utterly love motor bicycles. You not only drive them a lot, but you also have designed them, still design them, and customize them. Am I right?
Yep, that's right. Thank you for the introduction. I'm ever so humbled. Thank you very much.
Now, I know how to drive a motorcycle. I've never actually got my driver's license, but I really enjoy your Instagram account, which for our dear listeners, you can find at Holographic Hammer, which is HOLOGRAPHICHAMMER. And you'll see also amazing customizations and creations that Sylvain made. We would love to hear, Sylvain, your journey before you entered the watch industry and what you've created before you started creating these amazing Breitling watches.
I think the main start is my dad is an engineer by training, and my mother was an artist. So I grew up in a house where my dad was very strong at mathematics, and my mother was a very skillful painter. She used to paint on the walls at home and stuff. So I have this strong training in fine arts and a strong love and respect for these disciplines, as well as engineering from my dad. So I'm pretty much a mix of both, which led me into studying industrial design. And my first job was at BMW in Munich when I was 19. And I started at BMW as a Werkstudent, designing motorcycles. I worked 6 years in Munich for BMW, had an amazing time, did a lot of motorcycles and car projects. And then I felt I was missing home, really. I loved the job. BMW is an amazing company, but it never felt like home, Germany. So I felt the need to go back to Paris, open my own design studio where I kept doing freelancing for various brands such as MV Agusta, Ducati, and BMW still. This is when I did a lot of one-offs, so quote-unquote motorcycles built as unique pieces, either race bikes or road motorcycles. And I've been racing motorcycles for 20 years as a sport. And during that time, this is where I had first freelance watchmaking projects through IWC and Richemont. They were looking for petrol head takes on a few projects, and one project led to another, and I slowly transferred to Geneva in Meyrin at the campus de Haute Horlogerie. So it's pretty much the Richemont headquarters. Worked for George Cairn for 5 years at Baume & Mercier, and when he joined Breitling to take command of the new era of Breitling, I joined George again, and that's pretty much almost 5 years ago now that I'm running the design team for Breitling.
Amazing journey. So it begs the question, what are the similarities in designing motorcycles and watches?
There are actually quite a few. They have in common, in order to build a watch or a motorcycle, you need to have a strong technical background, knowledge, and understanding of how these objects function in order to be able to cope with them. So I would say the mindset is very much the same. You could, for example, argue that a movement is an engine on a bike, a case is a frame on a bike, and for example, the strap and the lugs would be all the ergonomics parts you could find on a motorcycle to operate it. So once you learned and you understood this design process to make a motorcycle, you can apply it to a watch. On the other hand, the main difference is the scale, and it took me, I think, almost a year to get my eyes friendly with the scale of watches, because on a bike you discuss down to a millimeter, on a watch a millimeter is a mile.
Mm-hmm.
You can do so many things within 1 square millimeter on a watch. And that's probably the biggest difference and the highest challenge I find when you translate from the transportation industry to the watch industry. But you find actually many other designers that make that bridge. Like, for example, Fabrizio at Bulgari was also working in the Italian car industry before. And
Yeah.
I think petrol heads and watch geeks are very close friends in reality. He rides motorcycles as well, for example. So that shows, I think boys in general like toys, and watches, just like bikes, are good toys we can play with. So.
Yeah, amazing. So you're referring to Fabrizio Buonamassa Staglioni, who's today the head of design at Bulgari Watchmaking. He indeed, like you, loves motorcycles and cars. He draws a lot of cars, but he also tours a lot on a motorcycle. So yeah, that's amazing. So I'm curious to know, what watch you're wearing today.
Today, I am not wearing a watch. I'm doing home office, but the closest watch I have to me is on the desk, a meter away, and it's my wedding watch. I married an exceptional woman, and she, on her own, took the decision to give me for wedding a 5196G from Patek. So it's a manual Calatrava.
Wow.
And she blew me away. I mean, she never told me anything. And she wears watches in a very funny way. Like, for example, she has a reverso, and she would not even bother to set the time correctly when she walks out the house. So she wears it as an accessory, for
a
a
jewel.
complete outfit. Yeah, exactly. Which for me is a crime. It's like, why would you wear a watch if you don't set the time? Yeah, but that's her way of doing it. And she made the research and bought that watch for me without telling me anything. So she brought me in Geneva one day. We went to the store, and she offered me this watch. I was blown away.
Amazing.
So very fortunate to have this piece.
She is definitely a keeper. And to all the lady listeners of the show, please take notes. And my question B was, what's the first Breitling watch you and your team worked on when you joined the Breitling team?
That was late 2018. My first project was the relaunch of the Chronomat collection. It was a big project. The Chronomat in the 80s was a big seller for the brand, an icon in the watch industry. The legend has it, all Breitling employees were telling me that back in the days they were moving a lot more Chronomats than, for example, Rolex Daytonas, because all the movie actors like the Belmondos and all these guys would rock some Breitling Chronomats, so the expectation was very high. This design hasn't been worked on for 15, 20 years, so it was quite a hard project to start at Breitling, which is why we took our time to work on it. It was 18 months of development, rebuilt the whole case, new B01 movement. We revived the legendary bullet bracelet, also called the rouleau bracelet. And overall now, the Chronomat collection at Breitling, 4 years down the line, is back on its A game. It's the number 3 best-selling collection for Breitling, and it's working very well. We are very happy.
Congratulations.
Went quite well as far as I can see. It's absolutely my favorite modern release, and really got me back into Breitling in a way, because I'd been an aerospace fan for years. I own one, but I was looking for some mechanical inspiration, and I found it with a new Chronomat line. What do you think of the ladies model that was announced not so long ago in Geneva with the responsibly sourced gold and lab-grown diamonds?
Breitling aims at being what we call new luxury. So it's a casual take on luxury. The goal is to be more modern, more inclusive, and by modern, that also means embracing values of the 21st century, and therefore efficiency and sustainability are extremely important to be relevant as a brand, I think, in the century to come. We see it every day, especially in Europe, all the tensions with fossil energies and the war even, and all these things. Efficiency will be key. And especially at this digital age, everyone likes to understand where the product comes from, where it has been built, and how, which is why this initiative of Chronomat Origin, where it's basically a combination of what we call new diamonds. So these are diamonds made by machines and non-extracted in mines. For the knowledge, the material itself is strictly identical. So diamond is basically compressed carbon. That's what it is by nature. If you find it in the ground, it took 1,000 years to be built under high pressure and high temperature. But you can also, thanks to technology, achieve this in a factory, which is how we do it now. That allows you to be a lot more creative in terms of shapes and a lot more efficient in terms of quality. So these machines produce only the highest grade diamonds you can find, unlike natural ones where you have to look around and see different grades of stones. So that's for the diamonds. And for the gold, we use ethic mine gold. So in a mine that you can actually trace, and we know where it comes from, because gold is actually very hard to trace. So that's pretty much and that applied to the Chronomats. That was the frame of this initiative.
Sylvain, on that topic, I am obviously very passionate because I'm a diamantaire as well. And I have nothing against lab grown, but I think that nothing beats natural diamonds. I actually would love to have your colleague on the show. I forgot her name, but I think she's
Aurelia.
Aurelia is the Chief Sustainability Officer, I think, within Breitling.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Yeah, she will tell me a lot more about it, because that's really her field of expertise.
Yeah, which is amazing that Breitling has her on the team and that you guys invest so much.
She is unbelievable. I listened to a speech given by her in Geneva, and she's just so incredibly in command of the subject. I was just absolutely awed by things I'd never heard anyone discuss in such depth before. Fantastic.
Yeah, and I would love to have a philosophical discussion with her, especially on the topic of diamonds, because if lab-grown diamonds are not 100% generated with renewable energy, they're not sustainable. And they're definitely not more sustainable than natural mine. But I'm going to leave you on that topic. What I do want to know is, you as a creative director within Breitling, how much do they incorporate you in that sustainability aspect? Who takes the lead on that, and how does it impact you and your team on the creativity when you need to take those aspects into account?
So as funny as it may sound, sustainability is quite transparent in terms of product design. The challenge goes more into product development and supply, because these materials have different technical constraints, so you need to source them differently. You may not have the right volumes or quantity you need, so you need to adjust your supply in consequences. And you need to understand the new technical requirements that goes into production to use these materials. But if I use, for example, sustainable leather, sustainable gold, and stones in terms of product definition and aesthetics, I have the same palette of creative freedom that I normally have using regular materials. So it's not much of a stress in terms of creative output.
And on topic of the Chronomat, which I love, I grew up with that watch in the early 80s. I think it came out in 85, if I'm not mistaken, 84. My dad bought the first one that came off from the Schneider era. So I remember the rouleau bracelet vividly, and it's one of my favorite bracelets ever. And besides that watch being a neo iconic watch, then the Navi timer is definitely iconic. How much pressure does it put on your shoulders as a creative lead within such an historical and iconic brand to evolve these designs? Do you enjoy that, or do you enjoy designing from scratch, having the creative freedom to create something new?
I like both. Often some people think that making a new version of an iconic watch is a lot easier, when in fact it's as complicated, because you don't want to be the guy who ruined the Navi timer, right? This is probably one of the most iconic pilot watches in the entire industry, if not the most iconic. Initially ordered by airplane owners and pilots. So the root of this piece is really a tool for pilots. This piece lived for 50 years, and now it was time to make. So we launched the new Navi timer last year, and it was more about evolution than revolution. And by that I mean good design should be applied to a specific frame, and in that context, our team is here to serve the brand and to deliver what makes sense for Breitling. And the mistake we try not to do is try to please ourselves. And for example, me pouring my own taste onto a Navi timer would not be the right exercise. So we did a long research. I wore a Navi timer for over a year to get a feel for the piece, to understand how it works, to see which were the areas where we could improve, and understand what were the strengths of this product. As a result, it is an extremely strong product. You can recognize a Navi timer from 50 meters away, maybe not, maybe 10 meters. It is a very strong design. And on this new generation, what we did is make the case thinner, erase the tachymeter on the dial, place the original AOPA logo back on the dial to honor its roots, and improve the finishing on the case. So, and I didn't want to touch this iconic design, which I think would have been a crime to change it just because I thought it would need to be changed. So overall, yeah, it's really an evolution of the design, and the response has been extremely positive. Again, we knew it would be a big launch, so we doubled the number of pieces we produced for the launch, and after 2 weeks we were out of stock, and we are still trying to catch up a year after on production to match the demand. It's really crazy.
Amazing. Congratulations. So you beautifully referred to as an evolution with little revolutions in the process. So obviously that recognizable design is still there. Would you then call bringing back the AOPO logo revolutionary, and the vivid colors, which have never actually been used on the Navi timer platform?
No, the AOPA was more, we say, a nice touch to show the heritage and to remember to everyone where this piece comes from. It's I love the story of the Navi timer because it's not a watchmaker invention. It's actually a group of enthusiasts that came to a watchmaker, to Breitling, and said, please build us this watch. This is what we need. And this is why it is so authentic. And I think it's important. And I thought it was a nice homage and a nice touch to place the original AOPA logo back on the dial. And for the record, AOPA stands for Airplane
Owners
and Pilot Association.
Yeah. And so it's interesting that you don't find it revolutionary, but me as a marketeer think it's rather revolutionary that Breitling, with the new era under George Kern's reign, you guys have actually played a lot with logos, which is, I think, very cool and of this era. But it's actually an unwritten rule in marketing that you never touch logos, right? You need to be consecutive all the time. Breitling, under the Schneider era and even the Willy Breitling's era, did use two. Well, actually, the Willy Breitling only had the written Breitling logo, right? Schneider used the B you guys have now, and they created the wings and the anchor logo. George Kern took that away, but with listening very much to the industry and the collectors, he brought it back on some collections, which I think was a stroke of genius. How do you see that as a design? Does that actually make you happy that you have that freedom? Because you technically have now 3 logos on dials.
I even have 4, because if you look on the top time, I have this cursive written Breitling logo in this very 50s, 60s style.
That's interesting. So who drives that discussion? Because I don't know actually any brand that has in their modern collection 4 different logos that they use of the same brand.
Yes, but I think one specific characteristic of Breitling in the industry is the depth of product we can offer. So we have on one side very traditional classic watchmaking products such as the Premier collection, and on the other hand, you have the professional products like the Emergency, the Aerospace, the Endurance. And these 2 products have nothing in common. They don't use the same materials, they are not the same sizes, not the same use scenario. So having the same logo could almost be some kind of a shortcut. It would not make happy both ends of the spectrums for the clients, which is why I think it's very modern and intellectually flexible to say, okay, it can still be Breitling even if we use different logos. And I mean, you've sold thousands of watches, Alon, and you know how much a logo has an aesthetic impact on the dial. You can screw an entire watch just with a logo.
I totally agree. I totally agree. So talking of the risks then, how do you perceive that the risk taken can make or break a watch? And do you think that only by pushing the envelope on creativity and therefore taking risks can create good products?
That's for sure. It's one of the hardest parts. I think that especially at a big brand like Breitling. Breitling is one of the top 10 big brands in terms of volume and turnover. So once you realize how many jobs and how much money is involved, the safest way to do it would be to turn into a defensive position, to take safe design decisions. But I also think it's the route to take shortcuts and to fail because you won't surprise people, especially now when we design pieces. Keep in mind, if I draw something today, it will take me 6 months, a year to get a full, coherent, precise, well-built product. And then we need another 2 years to homologate it and produce it. So we always have to project ourselves 3 years ahead. And at the pace Breitling is growing, it becomes very difficult to imagine the brand within 3 years. But if I look back at what we did, both on the Chronomat, the Navitimer, even the Super Ocean 3 was a bold launch where we rebuilt it entirely from scratch. And it shows that the risk had paid off in the sense, I think people respect brands where they don't imitate any other colleagues or brands in the industry, but they try to find their own mark. I find there is a great sense of honor into doing it. And for us, the design team, to do justice to Breitling, we really spend a lot of time to come out with bold designs that would honor the Breitling pedigree. This is really how we take it.
I want to discuss the challenge of both designs and turning brand perception around. So the 50s era under Willie Breitling was rather elegance, focused on chronographs and sports. The Schneiders, which were both father and son pilots, turned it around to even more on activity, chronographs, and therefore aviation as well, and called the slogan of Breitling Instruments for Professionals. Very masculine, very much tool watches. Under the new era, you guys tried to create, and that's my perception, a more rounded brand by offering elegant classical watches. You don't let go of the pilot, of course. You literally segmented into air, land, and sea, where Breitling was strong also in dive watches. And what I loved under the Schneider era, it was very technical. Rob just mentioned his aerospace watch, which I love as well, and was very, very, very loved by airline crew members, pilots and crew members. We sold literally thousands of aerospaces to airline crews all over the world. But what I find a pity, or me as a Breitling fan, I miss, is that you guys let go of the innovation side. What do I mean? You guys went so hardcore on retro. It's all surrounded by retro vibes. The boutiques are more casual, luxury, and contemporary. So let's say urban. Are you guys now exploring the more technical side again? Is the aerospace still in production, or is it out now? I forgot.
So the aerospace is still in production, and we are working on a new one.
Rob, it's good news for you.
I'm rubbing my hands with glee. Yeah, my bank balance is wincing already. I don't know what to say. I love aerospaces. I especially love special edition ones with little emblems on the dial. So maybe you can put a few aside for the real-time show limited. Just Alon and I will buy one, I'm sure, but we'd love that.
That's a good one. That's a good one. And Sylvain, I'm going to be a bit naughty and push the envelope. So will it stay titanium? Will it be titanium?
Yeah, sure.
And will you create a new metal bracelet? So titanium bracelet?
Yeah, we will offer a metal bracelet for the watch, yes. But I don't want to tell you too much about it. All I can say is we are working on it. It's actually on my end done already. But as I said, once my job is done, you still need 2 years to homologate, to produce. So I need to let my colleagues do their part of the journey. But you'll be happy. I mean, we tried our best again to understand the aerospace and give it good honor.
Amazing.
But I found your analysis on the previous Breitling very interesting, and it's true that our team, so George and the new management at Breitling, decided to put a big emphasis on the heritage of the brand, especially the Léon, Willie, and Gaston Breitling era. So from the pretty much from the start of the brand up to 1980s when the Schneider took over. But it has a lot to do with history. By that I mean the Breitling family members, they were building watches like tools. They were really tools in the sense because you needed the time, you needed to have the frequency in the factories, you needed to chronograph, to chronometer things and everything. But as you know, we had the quartz crisis, and this is where Breitling struggled a lot, like many brands. And the Schneider family came along and they played a lot with quartz. Breitling is one of the only brands that can sell ANA digital watches like the Emergency or the Aerospace. Keep in mind, the Emergency is 17,000 Swiss francs. very few brands can sell quartz pieces at that price with that level of technique, and that's one of the true signature of Breitling. And I believe the Schneiders saved Breitling from bankruptcy. That's really what they did.
They did.
Yeah, and this instrument for professional claim worked very well from the 80s up to the early 2000s. But no one could deny that from 2010, Breitling was slowing down. And I believe that's for two reasons. First, what I call exuberant luxury is no longer a thing. Walking around with a piece full of diamonds in a fully polished case, wearing 48 millimeter diameter is no longer very well accepted globally, I believe. And second, let's not forget connected watches appeared on the scene, and therefore it becomes extremely difficult for these technical quartz pieces to remain relevant. For example, the new Apple Watch Ultra, in terms of functions, is much more efficient than any quartz movement we could play with or come up with. So the question now becomes, how can we stay relevant in that using scenario without trying to become a tech company? Because I think it's not the nature of Breitling. We should not. Some of our colleagues in the industry, and that's my take on it, I think made the mistake to try to play against Apple, Sunto, and all these Garmin, for example, and Google even. But that's not how that's not the philosophy of Breitling. It's not the nature of the company. We don't have either the knowledge or the resources, and it's not what we want to do, really. Yeah, we are not a software company.
I truly believe that any business is people's business, from top to bottom, and more importantly, from bottom to top. And linked to that, critical success factors, I think, are passion. If there is no passion, no soul, people don't put their heart, and as the saying goes, blood, sweat, and tears into whatever they do, it's not doomed to fail, but you'll never have excellence, brilliance, pushing the envelope. I think you need to be almost obsessed about what you do. And I think you need a culture also, especially in a creative environment where you are, is to have an environment where you're allowed and able to make mistakes and actually learn from it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. And that I can rebound on because I have a good example. When we developed the new Navitimer, one of my dreams was to increase the water resistance. The Navitimer, by design, and I mean by that by technical construction, is a very special piece because when you turn the bezel, the glass turns with the bezel as well as a part of the dial for the slide rule. As a consequence, I won't go too much into details, but you have the torque you apply on the bezel go head to head against the water resistance. So if I want a higher water resistance, I have to put more pressure on the gasket. And as a consequence, you would not be able to turn the bezel anymore. So by design, I have a clear conflict between ergonomics, so how you turn the bezel, and technical reliability and water resistance. So my dream was to increase the water resistance. I worked on it night and day with the team, the technical office, to come up with alternatives and stuff. And after a year of work, we had this fancy prototype using some sort of a gearbox on the side of the case to decouple, on one hand, water resistance, and on the other hand, the turning system of the bezel for the slide rule. So we actually managed to do a 200 plus meter water resistant Navitimer, but as a consequence, the case costed 3 times the price of the existing product.
Oh my word!
So yeah, because the number of components went through the roof, it was much higher to machine. The current Navitimer is 30 meters, so that's 3 times the pressure of atmosphere. And we simply cannot go higher in terms of water resistance than this, because if I go higher, I can do a 200 meter water resistance Navitimer using the current construction, but you will never turn the bezel. or you will need 20 kilos of torque to turn the bezel, so you can't use it. So by design, I have this clear conflict. And when they designed it back then, it was a pilot's watch, so it didn't really matter. It was not meant to go in the water for in any scenario, which is why I wanted to improve it, and we did. So we find the technical way to do it. But as a result, I don't think if the price of the Navitimers double or triple from a day to another, I put myself in the shoes of the sales team who has to explain the product to our customers, and people go, "Why is it twice as more expensive?" The fact that you gained 100 meters of water resistance won't do it. I don't think so. So it's typically the case where technical innovation and improvement has its limits. The question is it really worth it?
That is the question. Is it worth it from a commercial perspective? But from a watchmaking perspective and from a consumer perspective, ultimately the product is superior to its forerunner. And that's exactly what more brands should be doing. Even if you can't justify raising the price as much as the new build cost should dictate, you have something that is tangibly better, and that is a step forward. And that is the kind of value I think more and more consumers are looking for. And it's the kind of responsible practice that more buyers want brands to take without being asked to take. So, yeah, it would be a bit tough to triple the price of a Navitimer because the water resistance jumped up. And although it would be justified from a pricing perspective, I think that if you just increase it slightly and people realize that you've actually gone to the ends of what's possible in watchmaking, because what you're talking about is trying to attack one of those eternal balances that normally can't be messed around with at all and come out the other end with a perfect harmony of usability and function and durability. I think people would allow for an increase in price and certainly think fondly of a brand for undertaking such a massive task. So I'm impressed. I want to see this new construction. I want to take it to pieces as well.
It's I spend a lot of time and energy trying to build this. But as a comparison, it would be like having a car with no gearbox, and you would have only one speed, and that's the speed you can drive because you have no gearbox. And from a day to another, you had a gearbox in a car. And in terms of technical complexity, it goes through the roof. I mean, this case was the time of machining was multiplied by 5 just for the case because the insides were so complex. It was, I mean, I still have it. If you ever come to the Breitling HQ, I can show it to you. It's very nice. When you turn the bezel, and I also did this trick to show that it was different inside, the slide rule would turn at a different speed compared to the bezel. I don't know if you see what I mean. If you turn the bezel 90 degrees, your reo inside, so the outer ring on the dial, would actually turn 120 degrees. So you could actually visually see
amazing.
that you have
right.
a difference.
I see what you mean. Oh,
Yeah.
by the decoupling of, okay. And that's
Exactly.
what the gears are doing. Oh, wow. Well, that is cool.
But
don't ever wear a Navitimer anywhere near me because I will rip it off your wrist and take it to pieces in front of you.
Rob, we're going. We just got an invitation. We're going. We're coming, Sylvain. I want to see it.
Well, yeah, we have to go there to pick up our 25-piece The Real Time Show Aerospace Special Edition, of course.
As well.
We're recording today on December the 15th, and this episode hopefully will air in the next couple of weeks. Yesterday saw the announcement by H. Moser and C of the new, I'm not going to read out the string of numbers, but I think it translates to Genesis, which is a watch based on utilizing digital identifications, authentications, and having its own metaverse space. Now, I know that Breitling was one of the first companies to implement the blockchain as a method of authentication, and I spoke with your colleagues in the past about it at length. And I wonder, do you see this forum, this new platform of development as something that will be very present in the future of watchmaking? And what else do you expect to happen as we look ahead to the years to come?
So, as funny as it sounds, I may be a designer by training. I'm not a big fan of these ultra digital technologies. you could think that because it's innovative, I would like it a lot, but I'm very skeptical by nature when it comes to this. The same that I'm still very skeptical about crypto, for example. Breitling used the blockchain to guarantee the authenticity of the watch and to show to the customer in a safe way and authentic way where has the watch been produced and where the components are sourced from. So it's more a transparency exercise. And as it is now, I mean, it's not my decision, but I don't see Breitling going into the NFT world, simply because you lose the physical connection. So I see a lot of brands going into NFTs. Personally, and now I talk under my own name. I don't talk in the name of Breitling. I don't like these things. It just doesn't move the bill for me. As an artist, as a guy who loves fine art, I just don't see the point to own a bench of pixels. But different strokes for different blokes, right? So if people are happy doing this, it's fine. And I hope that the future of the watch industry will not go heavily into NFTs, because you lose so much of what makes the poetry of this industry. You lose the finishings, you lose the weight of the objects, you lose the reflections, you lose the movements, the noise, the ticking, the weight on the wrist, the touch. I mean, how are you supposed to get all that on a screen? You just can't do it. So, which is why I think good craftsmen will always have a bright future, because you cannot replicate that otherwise. And on the other hand, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but I like to believe that the future of watches might go in two directions. First of all, the future of the industry is led by the independents, I think, because the big watch brands need to have a safe turnover, and they have multiple markets, multiple boutiques. So these are not the brands where you want to risk it all, so to speak, which is why the independents are more agile, smaller, and on the other hand, they have the duty to take risk and to experiment, because otherwise they would fall into how can I say? No one will talk about them, and they will not have the exposure they need to survive, so to speak. So being an independent, you must innovate. It's a must to survive.
So, Sylvain, on that topic, I'm daydreaming. Would you ever go out on your own and make your own watches?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I mean, this is, I believe, the real time show is the insider of the insider podcast, I believe. So I think people who listen to this are either working in industry or strong collectors, which is great. So I can say it here. A year ago, I started to have the discussion with George, and I told him I will serve Breitling with all my heart. This is my mission. This is what you want me to do, and I will never pour my own taste into it. But nonetheless, I've been now drawing as an employee for big brands for 15 years, and I feel the need to express myself outside of a frame and outside of an existing brand. So we had this discussion, and that shows how different we are and how modern we want to be. For the record, I get to do a lot of home office, same for my team. The design team at Breitling does most of home office. We have very strong creatives, and we want to keep working this way. And as a result, George and I came to an agreement that I can work for Breitling 80% of the time as a creative director, and 20% of the time I'm allowed to make small quantities of watches under my own name. So I'm not allowed to work for other watch companies, which was not my intention at all. But I'm allowed to try things under my own name. So what I did is took all the dreams, all the impossible things that you can't do in big brands, took all my savings and catapulted myself into creative dreamland, and I hope not to land into bankruptcy. That's pretty much what I'm doing.
So, are you giving us a scoop? We are going to see Berneron watches soon.
Soon, no, but sure you will. I mean, for the record, Alon and I met in Geneva a couple of weeks back, and I was wearing a test mule of my watch, so he got to saw it, and I think, without going too much into detail, Alon, now you see what I mean by what happens if you can draw a watch without limits, without restrictions, creative restrictions.
So I wanted to give you the full honor here to scoop it here, and I didn't know how much we could have discussed or not. So now that you've mentioned, I've seen a very early prototype, and guys, it is mind blowing. So I suggest the day you're ready to announce it to the world or discuss it and show it, Sylvain, we would be very honored if you come back on the show again. What do you think that is still missing in the landscape of wristwatches, Sylvain? And what's the philosophy behind your own watches?
Okay, so I find something very interesting. Very often in watchmaking, we talk about pursuing perfection and doing the best possible things. And for example, in the big landscape of design, 150 years of industrial revolution gave to us human fantastic machinery to manufacture objects that are highly complex, highly technical, made to the higher standards. And sometimes I feel that these objects lose their soul a bit. It happens to me when I see vintage bikes compared to modern bikes. Same for watches. When you see modern watches, sometimes you feel that they became so perfect that they lost their character, so to speak. And same goes for the rules. As a designer, you get so many rules to work with. I've been told for 15 years, don't break symmetry, for example. Don't break symmetry because it doesn't sell, it's disturbing. Don't break symmetry. That's one rule. You get it in the car industry, bike industry, watch industry. Why? Like from a creative perspective, the more you tell me not to do it, and the more I will be interested to venture into that. It would be like going in a house and I tell you, Alon, you can walk everywhere, but that door, do not open it. And I keep telling you that
It's
every week, Alon, do not open that door.
it's is as old as humanity on this planet. If we believe the Bible, I mean, there's a park called Eden, and there was an apple there that we can eat, right? So
Yes, so that's same for the rules in watchmaking. Like do not make your own movement. It's too complex. It's too complicated. It's too long. It's unsafe. Blah blah blah. Basically after 15 years, all these rules that I've been told stacked up in my mind until they built a thick and high wall, mental wall. I mean, which I never cross in my daily operations because. And I understand why, because you need to respect the brand. I'm not here to please myself. I'm here to honor the brand I work for. And I do this with my highest possible work ethics for Breitling every day. But as an artist, I have a strong love for art and for philosophy and for trying new things. Creating, by definition, is about doing something that doesn't exist yet. You could argue that you're not creating anything if it even looks slightly like something you haven't created anything. So what I did is pretty much ignore all these rules and these don't do's that I received for 15 years, took all the money I have and venture into this crazy project of trying. What I can say, whether if it will work or not, I can guarantee you this will be a watch nobody has ever seen before. And I didn't take any shortcuts, so that I will use gold only manufacture movement. And by manufacture movement, I mean everything is bespoke. That will speak to Rob. So new base plate, new bridges, new pinions. I even drew my own escape wheel that I will pair with an escape. I drew, my balance wheel, and we will pair it with the spring. Chose my stones, chose all of it. New barrel, new everything. And the problem is when you go to the suppliers and say, look, I'd like to make 40 pieces of these, you become really a troublemaker because you require dedicated tooling, which is the highest commitment for a supplier for the lowest quantity. But thank God, I've been working 10 years in this industry, and it took me some time to convince the people that I thought were the best to do this project. And for example, as an anecdote, went to the case maker. He's extremely busy. He's someone he's probably the best case maker I know. He makes all the grand sonnerie for Vacheron by hand, gold cases by hand. His work is amazing, and as every very skillful suppliers, these guys are not very friendly. So you need to beg them to have an appointment. When you get there, they will quickly make you understand that they don't have an entire afternoon to discuss, and you should get quickly to the point. But I think in the watch industry, Rob, you worked as a watchmaker. You probably know what I mean. Yeah, skillful craftsmen are not people who want to talk. They want to get shit done.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. With that kind of talent comes a level of cantankerousness, shall we say? That's why I'm so friendly, because I'm a terrible watchmaker.
No, but basically, so I went to him, discuss. I don't want to give his name yet, but so I had to beg him to get an appointment. He was late in an evening. We discussed. I show him the sketches on the table, and I started talking, trying to persuade him to do it. And he stopped me with his hand. He showed me the palm of his hand, sort of saying, "Shut your mouth." Yeah. And he looked at the sketches for, I kid you not, 2 long minutes. And I didn't know what to do. I was just standing there waiting, and I'm like, what's wrong? And he looked at it, flipped the papers and stuff, and he started to reply, your glass will be a nightmare to produce, and I think I have an idea to make the case back. I go, what do you mean? Does that mean you would consider it? And he said, I mean, it's a stupid idea. I don't understand why you want to do this, but I think it's interesting to try. So that I would be willing to give it a go. And I've been working with him now for months, and he agreed. I got the first prototypes. We challenged the thickness and everything. I don't even. One hint would be that it's going to be a very thin watch, not world record thin, because I'm not interested into that, but nonetheless a very thin watch, and Alon has seen it. I don't know how we can achieve gold pieces that thin. It's very nice. So when you get the chance to work with highly talented craftsmen, the quality of the project just goes even better. It's crazy. I'm very honored to have the chance to work with these guys.
This is exciting! I can't wait to see it. I'm really I'm salivating.
Don't be too excited, Rob, because I will get a lot of heat from this. I mean, you have to imagine, if I had to compare it in terms of painting, for example, that would be like a surrealist painting. It's something that when you see it at first glance, and I've done the exercise, I've put this watch in the hands of different types of people. So, for example, Alon, very open-minded, a lot of experience in the industry. You give him the watch in 10 seconds, he understands what you want to do. And he frames is remark like this. Now, if you take an engineer of someone that has probably lower self-confidence, who is more interested into buying a watch for a status symbol, if I give him my watch, it's a complete the things that I'm trying to insult them or something, like it's not funny or
Right, yeah.
So be ready for some trouble,
Okay,
because it's
okay.
not
I don't know, Sylvain, if you're set on 40, but if we are going to record Sylvain and he's giving us kind of a scoop, we need to publish the episode as soon as possible, because they're going to be sold out in a jiffy. I know that for sure.
I don't know. I mean, you're too kind. I think it will take 40 brave collectors to rock these pieces.
No, 40 is nothing. They will be snatched up.
I have the chance also, for the record, to be followed by very knowledgeable collectors such as Roni Madvani, Auro Montanari, for example. I talk with them on this project, and they challenge me very often, because even I get scared. Yeah, when I get the bills for the prototypes, and when I see the investment, man, like for example, making a manufacturer movement from scratch, no shortcuts. Every piece is built for you. The investment that goes behind it. Even I had to have the discussion with my wife. I'm like 33, and I told her, look, honey, I'm about to spend 15 years of savings into this. Since I started at BMW when I was 19, my dad told me, save 20-30% of your salary, you'll be able to buy yourself a house one day. I'm at that point, where I should capitalize on 15 years of hard work. And what I do, no, I take that cash and throw it in the bin, so to speak, or in the and thank God. I mean, my wife understands. She's an architect, so she understands. She has the love of arts as well. She understands that I would be happier going into bankruptcy trying to make this project work, rather than buying a house just for the sake of it.
I think that's the way to do it. And if I'm being honest, and although this sounds a little bit spiritual and maybe fatalistic, but generally when people do the right thing in watchmaking with genuine intentions, good things come their way. That isn't a hard and fast rule, of course, but if you are dedicated to an idea that you believe in so thoroughly that you'll pour 15 years of savings and the stability of your marriage into it, then you really deserve success. And I think it often comes because that kind of passion that you have comes through in the product. Okay, from what you're saying, and I haven't seen this product, so it's completely speculation on my part, but it sounds like a very challenging object, something that will make people look at their wrist in a way they've never looked at it before.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a run-of-the-mill watch that you get off a shelf. If anything, it's the whole industry convention, but inverted. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like it's going to mess with my head a little bit. It sounds like I might like it, but it doesn't sound like the sort of thing that you'd see in a high street jeweler's ever. It's something very special. Now, there are enough people in the industry that are bored of the regular fare, that want something really high-end, well-made, fully conceived from start to finish, that tells a message that is easily communicable on the wrist. Doesn't say it's easily digestible. I'm not saying it's going to be like something for everybody, and it doesn't sound like it is at all. But I think that there's always a space for that kind of crazy creativity. And I wish you all the best. I'm sure it's going to be a huge success, and I can't wait to see it.
Thank you very much. He's going to take, I think I should have the first functional prototype, fully functional, in October next year. So that's the kind of commitment it takes when you want to make a new movement without taking shortcuts. And at the end, let's see how that goes. At least I could say that I tried and I didn't take shortcuts. I mean, Alon saw it. When you see this piece, the question will be, try to find similarities with an existing watch. So will be the game. When I see too many people complain, I hear it so often. I'm a designer and I get this complaint very often. Oh, why do you guys go to the archives, and why do you look back? And in 20 years, we will celebrate the new launch of the 20 years anniversary of the previous watch, blah, blah, blah. So people complain that there is not new things. Okay, fine. I hear that. But these people usually don't see the business sides of things and the numbers. Now, with this project, I guarantee you, this will be new from scratch. Will be something you've never seen before, and let's see how many people still complain about. So it's also an experiment for me. It will probably be so it will. I think it's going to be go big or go home. Either, like Alon said, people will understand. Not very many. Will they be brave enough to put the money down on the table and to back up this work? I don't know yet. Or it will be the biggest failure, and it could cost me big time, even in terms of reputation, because that kind of project, if it doesn't go well, that's all people will remember me for. And I'm very much aware of this risk, and I'm willing to take the risk anyway, because I have true passion for art, and art is about pushing the limits. What happens if you don't respect the rules? Don't break symmetry. Fine. Okay. What if there is no symmetry at all? You can't find a single axis of symmetry. Zero. Try to imagine that in your head, Rob, because you worked on many pieces. If I tell you my watch has 0 axis of symmetry, no vertical, no horizontal, no diagonal, 0. Can you even picture it in your head?
No, and I'm not sure I'll be able to sleep for about 3 weeks now, so thanks for that.
Sylvain, I have one question. Yeah. So I know it's going to be a success. They are going to sell out. So I need to push you. What's next then? Did you think about that step already in your head?
Sure. For the record, the piece you saw in Geneva is my test mule, so it's not the final product. And this is in terms of creativity. And as I said, by creativity, I mean doing something that doesn't exist yet. That's creativity. This is level 1. I have level 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 10 in the bank. I have designs on paper that would require 4 times the investment I'm doing to build this watch. So I settled on this one for 2 reasons. I think it's the most, it's the essence of the concept. As you know, it's a simple construction. It allows me to display a design DNA and a brand architecture, tone of voice, so to speak. But then you can pile complications on top. And then we could go crazy, but I need first to understand if that type of project speaks to people before I can go further. So to answer your question, I have a lot worse to display if people are interested into seeing some more.
That is absolutely unbelievable stuff. I can't wait to see it. Because basically I'm going to be thinking about it until it's finally unveiled now, because you've really piqued my interest. 0 axes of symmetry. That's going to torment me for months.
Take a piece of paper, try to draw something, and you'll see. I mean, it's in terms of creativity. And so that bugged me for so long. People were saying, don't break symmetry, blah, blah, blah. But in terms of shape, for me as a designer, if you take any watch on the market, or 99.9% of the watches, you split them in 2 vertically and in 2 horizontally. 1/4 of the watch is what you get replicated 4 times on your wrist. And in terms of shape definition, it's actually quite poor. Yeah? It would be like having a car with 4 times the same corner, symmetric, and you could not tell. So a watch is a static object, but nonetheless, in terms of volumes, you could do so much more. What if there is no symmetry anywhere? And it took me hundreds of hours of sketching to understand that once you delete completely symmetry, it's not missing anymore because you have no reference point. It's like a tree. All of us have seen a magnificent tree in a field or in a forest, and you never say, "Oh, but it's not really symmetric." Yeah, you can find true beauty in asymmetry. That's a proof that it can be done.
And I guess when you remove everything and you're left with nothing, and nothing is all there is, then nothing becomes something. So
so to speak. But the last thing I can say, now you will understand why I didn't want to take shortcut. For the record, I came up with this design. it's a brain fuck, no symmetry of any kinds, blah, blah, blah. And because I was still wanted to be pragmatic, I wanted to base this design on an existing movement. I tried to twist the bridges a little bit, but it was an existing round base plate and bridges. I showed this to the collectors. I trust the fives that follow this project, and all of them told me, Sylvain, it's cool, but I mean, if you want to do it the whole way, you have to bend the movement. I'm sorry. And I go like, oh shit. And this is where it comes from, and Alon has seen it. If you want, Rob, I could get your number and I could send you the pictures on WhatsApp or something, but same goes for the movement. The movement is not round, it's bespoke completely, no symmetry, no nothing. And this is where you go into nightmare land, because making... nonetheless, I pushed the button. As I said, I catapulted myself into it. So right now I'm in the air trying to do damage control and not land into bankruptcy. That's what I'm doing. But it will happen no matter what.
Well, good luck. I don't think you need as much as you probably think you do while you're floating through the air waiting for a soft landing. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch this develop, and I'm really, really thrilled that you are taking this leap, as terrifying as it must be. So that's where we're going to wrap up the show. Thanks, Sylvain, for joining us. That was one of the most interesting and disturbing chats I've had so far on the Real Time show, and I'll definitely give you my number, because otherwise I really won't be able to find any rest until next October, when this watch finally debuts in the market. If you would like to ask Sylvain any questions about his project, of course, we have plenty of time to get him back on the show before the watch actually comes out. Then you can get in touch with us on Instagram. I'm there at Rob Nuds, that's ROBNUDDS. Alon is on Instagram at Alon Ben Joseph, ALONBENJOSEPH. And you can contact us both directly via email. That's rob@therealtime.show or alon@therealtime.show. Don't forget to check out Sylvain's own project at Berneron. That's BERNERON.